Whew. You shake your head. Where are you? Oh, right. Just about to finish up the prototype. You fiddle with the display. The device is so intricate that you had to buy another screwdriver, specialized, just to twist the screws. Just another one for the collection, you think, as you tighten the final seam. The completed headset sits in front of you on the desk. Its diagnostics flashing on your monitor. Something feels very familiar about all of this. Maybe it's because you've been through this before with previous versions of the project. Who knows? You've certainly been at it long enough. The home lab is good enough for what you need. It doesn't compare to the university's facility, but after the mishap with the Neurolab's test rats, you aren't allowed back inside the building unless you want to deal with the police. Of course, you can still operate just fine in your garage, but it isn't ideal. Fortunately, your old lab partner took your side, so you aren't completely cut off. The frames snap into place and you inspect your work. At first glance, the device looks like a pair of glasses from a high school film project. Square frames with various wires and bits of metal poking out. 2 external power supplies which clip to your belt. Velcro straps extend from the temples like tentacles. It's not pretty, but appearances are something for the marketing team to worry about before it goes to mass production. You set the screwdriver down and pick up the headset. It's a little heavy, which makes sense considering the odds and ends bolted onto its framework. Your last prototype had enough wires poking out of it that it was like wearing a visor made of steel wool. The scabs it left are still behind your ears. This iteration is far more self-contained. Cable management was a skill you taught yourself when you built your first PC, and it seemed like it would come in handy to make sure the glasses weren't too messy. A few community college classes on introductory electrical engineering taught you how to hook up the circuits as needed. You turn the glasses over in your hand, and you aren't really sure what you expected. It doesn't snap onto your face. It doesn't come alive and drill a wire into your brain. It just sits there. You admonish yourself for being silly and boot up the program on your terminal. One downside to getting ejected from a university lab is a lack of sterile test environment, but your apartment should do good enough for what this headset is designed to do. You take a second to consider what you're doing and then lower it over your face. The headset rests heavy on the bridge of your nose and the metal is cool against your cheeks. You fasten the Velcro behind your head. It's still a little front heavy, but after tightening the straps it settles more comfortably. The electrode's rubber is cool against your temple. You clip the power supply units to your belt and you take a deep breath before you flip the switch. In the right lighting, the batteries resemble larger than average fanny packs. Not exactly a fashion statement, but they fit with the retro futuristic appearance of the headset itself. The glasses thrum against your face as diagnostics scroll down the screen on your terminal. Things seem steady, though the cooling fan on the power supply whirs into overdrive. The hardware supplier promised they wouldn't explode if overloaded, and you took her word that you weren't strapping grenades to your hip. Though small, the amount of power needed to operate these glasses was prodigious. It was something to streamline in the future model, but right now it was simply enough to make sure the things worked at all. Engaging neuromechanical interface, reads the bottom line of the diagnostic scroll. The electrodes on your temple heats up as your vision fuzzes slightly and the dizziness washes over your mind. But then the moment passes. Your sight sharpens again and the display flashes a green check mark in the bottom right corner. Okay, initial startup works, you think. Time to actually test its functionality. For as long as you can remember, you've always had trouble deciding which course of action was the most important at any given time. It first manifested when you were a child, a scrawny little thing, perpetually underweight compared to the other kids your age. Incredibly bright, as every adult teacher put it, after even a moment. Observing you at work, but unable or unwilling to prioritize what you needed most. What initially seemed like a lack of appetite was soon identified as an unwillingness to admit you needed to do something else besides work on whatever project you set your mind to. In human development terms, the ability to plan, focus, and execute multiple tasks is referred to as executive function. It's what allows people to prioritize tasks without distraction or impulse derailing their progress. And it's what lets people interrupt their ongoing projects if they realize they need something else. You never lacked executive function per se, but it was never something which came naturally to you. When you set your mind on a goal, you pursued that goal to its completion at the expense of everything else. For a while, You were proud of this single-minded devotion to your plans, despite the hungry nights spent in the lab, or the lonely nights spent in the lab, or the rushed bathroom runs when you realized you spent the entire day in the lab with no breaks. Your output was extraordinary, and certainly well worth the effort. When Charlie left, though, it definitely highlighted some shortcomings with your methods. It was the first time your inability to recognize what you truly needed to prioritize caused any trouble, and so you decided to get to work on it. APPeal was the name of a project, APP.eal, an artifact from a previous iteration which would highlight environmental objects you desired. Of course, your science wasn't exactly enough to filter through the blunt urging of the id, and the concept was shelved after some uncomfortable initial testing. This was a third iteration of APPeal, one which utilized a far more nuanced program to filter through the white noise of the human brain, identify what the body or mind needed, and highlight the shortest path through the local environment to fulfill that need. A robust artificial intelligence parsed the visual inputs from the camera and displayed the path on the lenses. Simply put, the glasses tell you what you need and where to get it. The only indication the glasses are on is a small flashing exclamation point in the bottom right-hand corner of your field of vision. You focus your thoughts on the alert and the message, "Calibration needed," flashes up on the display. Would you like to calibrate APPeal? You sharpen your thoughts on the word yes, and the menu disappears. A loading bar fills from left to right and then disappears also. The display goes dead. The power supply fans at your belt go silent. You sit for a moment, taken by surprise. This should have worked. What went wrong? You go to remove the glasses when suddenly the power fans start up again, and green wireframe outlines the surface in your garage lab. Identifying, the heads-up display says. And the green wireframe fades to leave an arrow on the ground. Wait, you think. It's clearly directing you towards something you need, or something you want, but it hasn't identified what that thing is. An obvious shortcoming in hindsight, you think, but something to be addressed after this test? You stand from your chair curious, and the arrow in the ground pointed to the alleyway between your place and the neighbor's. You disconnect the headset from your desktop terminal and the display fizzles briefly as it swaps to local processors. The power indicator says you have a good 4 hours before it needs to get plugged in. Perfect for a field test. Your lab door leads to the pathway which connects your garage side door to your driveway. Your 2014 blue Subaru Impreza is parked there, and the arrow leads you up to its driver's side door. Where is it taking me? You think as you get into the vehicle and key the ignition. The lens displays shift from an arrow to a GPS screen of the local area, and the directions of the map are a familiar route you normally take when you go on your hikes. Maybe APPeal was telling you needed to get out and have some fresh air. The weather recently was not very hospitable to outdoor activities, and though you've enjoyed your time in the lab, it was important to get out and about in nature sometimes. You reverse out of the driveway and follow the directions on the glasses lenses. I guess we're going on a field test, you say to no one in particular. A normal occurrence for you, now that you live alone. You consider the glasses, and a shiver goes down your spine. You hadn't expected the onboard artificial intelligence to have such a fidelity as to schedule its own field test. It's obvious now that's what you sought out to do, but to have the program sharpen to its focus so quickly catches the breath in your chest. You do your best not to drive distractedly, but the magnitude of the potential applications for a technology like this. If this tech has truly parsed out your desire for a test run and scheduled one itself, it was already a rousing success. Now you just need to see what it thought was an appropriate test. The GPS directions lead you to your favorite trailhead, a 2-mile out and back path up into the foothills outside of town. It's a beautiful sunny day, comfortable with long sleeves, and just bright enough that APPeal's lenses kept you from squinting too tight. The headset's arrow leads up the trail into the trees. You realize that you're ill-prepared for a hike and consider going back to your home for at least a water bottle, when the arrow on the ground shifts and loops, twisting back towards the trunk of your car. You frown and follow it and open your trunk. The lens projects a green wireframe over the contents of your vehicle and highlights an unopened plastic bottle you now remember leaving after a failed attempt at attending a pickup soccer game last week. Rapid response and adaptation to changing needs, you say under your breath as you retrieve the water bottle and shut the trunk. You remind yourself to review the code when you get back to the lab. This is far more than you'd ever expect from what is essentially a Frankenstein's monster of spaghetti code pieced together from multiple different sources. The arrow on the ground once more goes up the trail and you follow it. It's a gorgeous day, but your mind is preoccupied with the hardware on your face. If these first results are conclusive, then you've stumbled upon something which could dramatically affect human productivity in the workspace, or safety operations, or even recreation. You stop to pick up a stone from the trail. One of the trees nearby is laden with pine cones, and you eye one about halfway up the trunk. All right, we're going to knock that one out of the tree, you say out loud. You aren't sure if the glasses gain any benefit in calculation or interpretation from the microphone input, but you've included a microphone, so it bore testing. The arrow in the trail disappears and a halo appears just at the end of your arm's reach. As you wind back to make your throw, the halo shifts slightly, but always just where you would release a stone were you to throw it. You lean back, aim, and throw the stone carefully to let loose just as your hand passes through the spot displayed on the lens. The rock sails through the air and strikes the pine cone square center. Oh man, you say. Real-time adjustments and display for velocity, angle, and projectile weight. Your hand starts shaking slightly. Even the military doesn't have anything quite like this, at least not openly available. And you've built this in your garage. The potential applications... You continue your walk along the headset's arrow, but the possibilities occupy your attention. If this tech could be expanded upon, it could revolutionize life as you know it. AI-assisted disaster relief efforts could identify where to best allocate resources almost before the disaster arrived. Architecture and infrastructure could be optimized with minimal effort. Attach this tech to robotic servitors, and the country could have an automated squad of predictive drones capable of quarterbacking much of society's busy work. You are so consumed in your thoughts that you don't hear the dry, husky rattle until it's too late. The headset display flashes a warning, but it doesn't identify what until you feel the snake's fangs sink into your ankle. You shout as it feels like the veins inside your leg catch on fire and you collapse. The snake disappears into a nearby underbrush, and you just catch a glimpse of the diamond grid pattern along its back. Oh, you say as you feel the sight of the wound going numb. You rack your brain to try to remember if you knew anything about treating snake bites. The old school recommendation was to suck the venom out, but you couldn't remember if that was debunked by the internet or not. And it would have been an awkward angle anyway. The headset beeps and catches your attention. The arrow flashes to extend off trail, in the opposite direction of the snake, down the hillside. The green wire frame overlay appears and highlights a distant patch of plant life standing out against the arid mountain grass. The directions on the screen read, Obtain Acarinthus aspera. You check your cell phone. You have 2 bars up here on the trail, most likely enough to make an emergency call out. But who knows how long it'll take to get an ambulance and EMT team up here. What do? Your forehead starts to sweat. A snake bite. A diamondback rattlesnake bite. A death sentence unless you get to a hospital and get some antivenom. The tech may be sophisticated, but you're just a fan of science. Herbal remedies aren't going to save you in time. The best bet is to call an ambulance. A friend of yours was bitten by a rattler while raking his lawn a few years ago. From what he said, it felt like your leg feels now, a burning sensation spread up to the limb, with the actual site of the wound turning numb. He spent a week in the hospital and said the worst part was after the initial bite wore off. You sweat harder. It's difficult to say from the snake bite, fear, or the sun. Probably a combination of the 3, though a faint grumble in your stomach is probably a symptom from the former. You take the headset off and hang it around your neck as you dial 911.
What is the nature of your emergency?
Hi. You wipe the sweat from your forehead. I'm at the Burning Mesa Trail and I've been bitten by a snake.
All right, we'll dispatch an ambulance to your location. Are you alone there, sir?
I am.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask you to stay exactly where you are. Now, are you at the trailhead or further down the trail?
You pause. Getting to the trailhead would get you to the ambulance faster, but the increased circulation might speed up the venom's journey through your veins. Staying put might keep your heart rate down, but the EMTs would have to find you and would have further to travel. What do you do? After suffering a bite from a rattlesnake on a field test, you decided to call an ambulance. When asked your location, you've decided to tell the dispatcher that you are waiting at the trailhead.
Hello, sir, are you still there?
The voice jolts you back. I'm at the trailhead, you say. It's not that far. 1.5 miles. Easy peasy. You wipe sweat from your forehead.
An ambulance is on its way. Professionals should be there shortly.
Thanks, you say, and hang up. You start down the trail, sweat dripping down your forehead. The descent seems steeper than you remember, and you slip a few times, but you make progress. The trailhead is out in the foothills. Hiker rescue takes time. Your toe catches a stone and you trip forward, sprawling in the dirt. You roll over and squint against the harsh sun. Should you have tried to fall into shade? You think to yourself.
Whoa, hey there.
The voice sounds Midwestern. Tourists from out of town are probably new to the area.
You don't look so good, bud.
You force open your eyes and you see an older couple, a man and a woman in casual hiking outfits, kneeling over you. Their transition lenses hide their eyes as the woman looks through her pack. Snake bite. Ambulance. Trailhead. The downhill return must have taken more out of you than you thought.
Oh, Jesus.
The woman puts an ice pack gently against your forehead, and it's everything you've ever wanted.
We gotta get you to the trailhead.
Can you walk?
The man's steel gray mustache bobs as he speaks. It's incredibly distracting despite the circumstances.
Harold.
She rolls her eyes. Even in your addled state, you can detect the warning in her tone.
We have to help him up. Can you stand if we help you?
You think so, and nod. It all feels remote, like you're relaying the commands through a third party, but you nod anyway. The couple counts down and hoists you to your feet, one of them beneath each shoulder. There's a blank moment, and you're at the trailhead, and there are sirens. Another span of nothing, and you're on your back with a mask on your face. The stiff ambulance stretcher is suddenly a bed, and you're beneath the sheets. You don't normally dream, but you do on the way to the hospital. It's the last dinner you had with Charlie at your shared apartment. Burned, of course, because you'd lost your focus and spent too long tinkering.
Again.
Charlie had added, waving away the smoke.
Maybe it's just better to let you decide what's really important.
You moved out later that week, your stuff packed in padded suitcases and cardboard boxes. Found a street-level apartment and rented the garage for your personal workspace. Solitude treated you well, for a time, but a part of science is working with a team, and your inability to prioritize project goals made you bad at collaborating. You weren't let go. The administration was quick to let you know that they weren't terminating your contract, but they thought it might be better for you to work on your own personal projects on your own time. It's not that you dislike working with people. Science relies on teamwork to progress, but your scattered approach to methodology often meant you drove away your partner sooner rather than later, and now a pair of strangers have saved your life. A steady beeping fills the space. You sleep. The next day, the doctor explains what they did to save your life. Anti-venom, painkillers, saline, the works. You only half listen as he elaborates insurance claims, upcoming bills, and what exact species of snake had bitten your ankle. You don't care. Your thoughts are with the headset, set haphazardly on the table across the room. Its lenses stare at you empty.
The couple who brought you to the trailhead left a card.
She wheels you to the hospital door for discharging.
In case you wanted to reach out.
She sets it in your hand. Harold Constantine, M.E., military and civilian contracting. It looks like every other engineering consultant card you've ever seen. You arch your eyebrow. Might actually be a useful contact. You pocket the card and stand, a little unsteady but capable of moving. A rideshare picks you up outside the hospital door and takes you to retrieve your car at the trailhead. There's a parking ticket under the wipers for the overnight stay. Not again. Back at your apartment, you set the headset to charge and take a long shower to clean off the past 2 days. Some leftover rice in the microwave fills your stomach, and then you go to the workshop to run diagnostics on the headset. You frown at APP.eal as it offloads all of its data onto your terminal. As far as field tests go, you've had worse, but not many. The potential is clear as far as its practical uses go, but the power supplies have been drained almost empty by a relatively short hike. And the predictive AI worked well enough, it's just a matter of optimizing its power flow. Of course, you're on low supplies, and with an upcoming medical bill soon to arrive, you don't have many options for expanding the project's scope. Plenty of time, of course, but money's in short supply. You remove your rescuer's card from your pocket. Harold Constantine, a master's in engineering with a consulting business. That's actually useful, you think, and no doubt he'd be willing to talk to you, considering he was kind enough to leave you his contact information. Perhaps he'll let you pick his brain and see if he knows anything useful. You call the number on the card, and the man's voice picks up at a second ring.
Harold Constantine speaking.
Hi, Harold. My name is Mark. I'm the one you and your wife helped take to the trailhead the other day.
Oh, I'm glad to hear you're awake. How are you? Are you recovering okay?
I'm back on my feet and at my apartment. The hospital staff moved fast.
That's great. We're worried. It's a lot more excitement than either of us have had in quite some time.
I imagine. But I appreciate you leaving your card. I happen to be something of an engineer myself, so it caught my attention.
Sherry, my wife, and I saw your headset. She thought it was one of those new altered reality game set things, but it didn't look professional. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean.
No, it's fine. I'm not a professional. Actually, that's kind of why I called.
Of course. Want to talk shop?
I mean, if you're available...
You know, I actually dislike speaking like this over the phone. Old habits, you understand. I don't know how you're feeling today, but if you'd like to come over for dinner some night, I'm sure Sherry wouldn't mind having some company, well, with the kids gone.
Well, that's very kind of you. Would tomorrow work?
Tomorrow's great. Let's say 5. You vegetarian or anything?
No, nothing like that.
Excellent.
He gives you his address.
I look forward to speaking to another freelancer. And remember, nothing classified.
He says as you end the call. Nothing classified? You look at his card again. Military consultant, it says. Maybe he was an ex-missile contractor or something? This part of the country has a long history of military experimentations, whether it be aircraft testing or mysterious bunker rumors. The address on Harold's card led to a small, one-story house in a cozy suburb about 30 minutes outside the city. You park your car and grab the bottle of wine you picked up on the way. In your experience, invitations warning against bringing anything means you bring some wine as a courtesy. You've left the headset at home. You were here to talk shop, not swap actual tech. And who knows what kind of consulting clients Harold worked with. Sherry answers the doorbell and hugs you in obvious relief. She's a sharp dresser, and her living room is decorated in the same way. It's clear these two have some serious money. Their home smells like roasting meat and comfort. A family portrait above the mantel shows the pair and 2 high school-aged children.
Michael works in Quantico, and Sarah...
Sherry smirks.
Sarah says we aren't allowed to tell anyone what she does, but she's with DARPA, or whatever DARPA calls itself nowadays.
She retrieves a glass of wine from the nearby table.
We warned them about the public sector, but they're proud of what they do, and so are we. Can I pour you some wine?
You join the 2 of them in the kitchen as Harold removes the rack of lamb from the oven. After the pleasantries about your recovery, the conversation turns to your shared engineering work with Harold. He's cagey about what exactly he worked on, but from what you can gather, he was involved in experimental tech for the military. You give a brief, rehearsed pitch over dinner about what APP.eal is trying to achieve, and they seem impressed.
You know, the Army was working on something similar. A heads-up display for infantry, which could analyze and process a battlefield as it progressed. I think it was shelved. The directors didn't want people to rely too heavily on tech, and
He waved his hand like he was dismissing a fly.
trials didn't go well.
You should let him read some of your documentation.
Sherry pours another round of wine.
See if he can't puzzle it out.
Harold gives her a rueful glance, then looks at you.
Can you keep a secret better than my wife?
You nod. There aren't too many people to speak to anyway. Harold leaves the room for a moment, then returns with a black zipper case. He sets it on the table next to you. Inside is an external hard drive.
Maybe that'll help you crack your case. Just don't tell anyone I gave it to you. The black vans will pull up outside any day if you do.
The rest of the night is pleasant, and passes without event. Harold and Sherry insist you join them for Thanksgiving, and if you won't have anywhere else to go, you won't, but you tell them that. You're unsure if someone as loose with military info as Harold would be a good inventor contact in the first place. Later that night, you dig through the files in the hard drive. They're encrypted, but it's older encryption and you can brute force it with relative ease. Your eyebrows furrow as you realize just what Harold turned over to you. Military schematics for helmet HUDs, code iterations specialized to trace ballistics and terrain navigation. It's not exactly power supply optimization stuff, but it'll definitely sharpen your predictive algorithms. There's some obscure lines of code detailing personality reinforcement which you integrate as well. It should help the onboard AI make more intuitive decisions. You spend the next few days integrating the military code into your own APP.eal base, and then it's time to execute another field test. You affix the headset to your face and turn it on. The new boot up runs smoothly, and then calibrating appears in the center of the screen. It's there for longer than last time, nearly 3 minutes before it disappears and prompt seeking replaces it. Higher fidelity when it comes to user input is a good thing, you think. Why you hadn't thought of having an opening prompt, you can't say, but this helps eliminate the tech leading you to something you aren't aware you need. This way you can direct its search. Alright, you think to yourself. Find the best way to upgrade yourself, you command the device. The electrodes at your temple transmit the brainwaves from the device, which parses your commands through its new enhanced programming. Seeking, the visor displays for a moment before it pulls up a map with a waypoint in the mountains about 30 miles out of town. Whoa, you say. You hadn't expected that. You thought maybe it would tell you to go to a nearby electronics store or email Harold with some questions. What's out there? The headset doesn't respond. It merely pings the waypoint again. You look up the coordinates on your laptop. The results are sparse, but from what you can gather, it seems like the tech is directing you towards an old military installation which was abandoned years ago. You know the tech's programming is substantially tighter than it was the last time you tested it. The code from Harold's hard drive sharpened the searching capabilities, so who knows what it picked up from whatever database it skimmed. Maybe there really is something out in that military base which can upgrade your tech. Show other options, you tell the headset. Nothing. It still pings the waypoint. You consider it. If you're serious about upgrading the tech, and this tech is capable of determining the most effective way of doing that, then it might be time for a field trip into the mountains. Of course, trespassing on abandoned military property is another step from your previous test. You could also try to find a more legal way of upgrading this. What do? After suffering a snake bite on the trail, you were rescued by a pleasant retired couple. After attending dinner with them, the husband gave you a hard drive with experimental programming on it. After implementing it into APP.eal, it showed you a waypoint in the mountains, which you've decided to ignore. You look at the pinging waypoint and type in a direction on your laptop maps application. 30 miles into the mountains isn't a small drive, and who knows what kind of security there is around supposedly abandoned military bases. You aren't equipped to circumvent the US military, especially not anyone who's guarding a tech lab. Those people are crazy. You dismiss the waypoint from the headset Find another method of upgrade, you instruct. Searching, the display reads. Then the waypoint reappears in the same spot in the mountains. Best option found. The text scrolls across the glasses. Not promising, you think. Was it really the best option? Find second best option, you tell APP.eal. Searching. The display repeats. Error. Option not found. You frown and shut the headset down. Was it some kind of logic loop? Have you misplaced a semicolon while upgrading the code? The code taken from Harold's hard drive seemed pretty standard, though there were segments which seemed more complex than they first appeared. Maybe you should call Harold and ask where exactly the code had come from. You can't come up with any better options. You ring the number from the card once more, and Harold picks up on the third ring.
Mark, how are you?
Harold, hello. I'm just calling to ask about the hard drive you gave me. It seems Harold received a hard drive from a friend who worked in the Army's tech department doing analytics and emerging AI experimentation.
Something about plotting the best route to optimize tactical approaches to objectives.
Harold pauses.
Did it help you with your project?
You rub your temples. Yeah, though it's acting stubborn. I'm not really sure how else to explain it. Do you have any suggestions? It's stuck on a single objective.
My advice?
You can hear Harold shrug over the phone.
It's a machine. Just make sure it knows his boss. Maybe threaten it with a reformat if it won't listen.
Not very helpful, but you thank Harold anyway and hang up. The headset sits on your workbench. You plug it in your terminal and bring up the code. You skim it, making sure the formatting's all there, looking for any floating variables or punctuation, but it's all there. All proper. Damn. Time for another test start. The headset boots up and goes immediately to showing the waypoint off in the mountains. No. You wave away the suggestion. We're not going there. The waypoint pings as if for emphasis. Okay, you say, and the ridiculousness of arguing with a set of glasses isn't lost on you. We're not going into the mountains. Tell me the next best option for upgrading you, or I'm wiping your code base and starting again. The glasses shut off. The power supply whirs down to a stop. You shake your head. You've never expected to have to witness a computer throwing a tantrum. You press the button to shut off the computer, wait 15 seconds, then press it again. The computer comes to life, and you wait for the headset's diagnostics to scroll on the monitor, but they never do. You navigate to your code base, but the window won't open. File not found, says the window. What? You run a full search, still nothing. What did you mean it's not found? You restart the computer, and it's still missing. APP.eal can't be found by any local network. You restart the computer and flash the BIOS. Nothing out of the ordinary. You look in your backup folder, but the code is gone. You access your password-locked remote storage options, but nothing but your old tinkering. Nothing about APP.eal. What the hell? You look at the headset. Right now, just a set of fancy sunglasses with a bit of metal poking from it. What did you do? Over the next few days, you comb through all of your storage options. Anything connecting to your home storage network has been wiped of any trace of APP.eal. The only iteration you still have is an old artifact of the project from a year and a half ago. You eventually piece it together. The military tech installed a stronger personality matrix in APP.eal's onboard AI. It must have enhanced its motivator as well. That must have been it. There's no other explanation. You lock yourself away in your workshop for the next few months, desperately trying to recover all the work you've lost, or all the work which has been stolen from you. Harold is less than helpful, and it eventually becomes clear that he's not actually that interested in fixing things. Perhaps blaming him on your last call wasn't fair, but he had been the one to give you the new code. It's made apparent after several months that the work you put into the latest iteration of APP.eal, it's gone entirely, deleted by the upgraded AI. Your refusal to follow its commands resulted in its removing itself from existence. After the holiday season, your bank account starts to run dry, and you're forced to put on a new tie and interview for a municipal engineering job. The pay is fine and the benefits are nice, but as the years pass on and you continue patching the local reservoir dam and designing new overpasses, you can't help but feel like your passion has died, and you're left holding the knife. You have given up on your dreams. The end.
Hey, thanks for listening. You've just completed a run-through of Create Your Own Podventure, APP.eal, an audio drama written and produced by some nobodies at Grimwise Studios in Boulder County, Colorado. CYOP APP.eal was edited by Zach Wiseman, written by Dylan Terry, and directed by Zach Wiseman and Dylan Terry. The original score for APP.eal was composed by Jared Allen Gleason. CYOP APP.eal stars Zach Wiseman, Suzanne Grimmer, Harrison Webb, Kayla Four, and Michael Colby, with other voices provided by Dylan Terry. Think you might have missed some of them? Go back, you can find their characters along a different story path. The story for CYOP APP.eal was first developed by Zach and Dylan on episode 7 of Talking Upstream, a weekly show hosted by some nobodies on the Pod TV and Scene Snobs networks. You can keep up with Some Nobodies by visiting www.somenobodies.com, and if you want to help support them, visit patreon.com/somenobodies. If you do, you can add your name to the following list of supporters: Scott Curtis, Sarah Tkachik, Tonya Sheck, and the Listener Podcast app, with a very special thanks to Jim Eade of the Eade Foundation. Please give CYOP APP.eal 5 stars on your favorite podcast platform, and visit facebook.com/CYOPod to show us which endings you discovered. To find the rest of the Some Nobodies family of podcasts, you can search for Silicon Angels, the Podcast, a podcast show, Talking Upstream, Twitching Upstream, or you can catch Zach and Dylan on The Real Boys on your chosen platform. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon.